Welcome to Unfiltered Truth with Jack Bomar, where there's no fluff, no filters, just bold conversations and real life stories to help you live beyond the limits. For years, we've heard the narrative that people are leaving the church. They're leaving traditional religion. They're leaving spiritual communities. But what if that's not the case? What if rather than a great leaving, there's a great returning and a great reclaiming? Today, we want to lean into the idea of the sacred return, why people are returning to spiritual communities, seeking indigenous wisdom, and exploring African spirituality. Across generations, from our elders to millennials to Gen X and Gen Z, people are looking for something deeper, something more profound. And to help us unpack this conversation, we have with us today my dear sister, friend and colleague and neighbor across the street, Reverend Dr. Lynne Washington from the Church of the Incarnation here in Atlanta. Welcome, my sister. Thank you so much for being with us, for being with me on this new podcast, Unfiltered Truth. You're looking great.
Well, thank you.
So you must be feeling great.
I'm feeling great. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to have a unfiltered conversation about real issues that are facing us. I think I couldn't have it with a better person.
Oh,
and I appreciate being on this first podcast.
Hey. So let's dive into it. What's happening? What's happening? Why is it? You've heard the reports, and I'm sure you've seen it. You've been leading congregations for many years, and you've seen the trend. People come and go, that kind of rotating door. So what's happening? You know, on one hand, we hear that people are leaving the church. They're leaving organized religion. They're leaving the traditional religious process, and that maybe their parents and their grandparents adhere to. What's happening, and what are we looking for? What are we looking at, and what are people looking for? We're talking about across the generations, from elders to Gen Z. What's happening?
I think we're going through a shift, just like we had a shift in the industrial age from an age of farming. We're having a information overload shift right now. And the truth of the matter is, I think a lot of people feel the church has not been genuine in institutional religions. I'm not just going to place that at the feet of the church, but there's so much information out there that, hey, how come I didn't know this? Why didn't I know that? And I think that's playing a huge part of what we're seeing as a reduction in a particular demographic. I think baby boomers and millennials, new information, overload. And I think there's another piece when you look at traditional mainline religious, especially when it comes to oftentimes people of color. I think that, and I'm going to even go a little bit deeper for
just make it real, no filters.
For African Americans, the tradition in many ways has been packaged in a very Eurocentric manner.
That's it.
And people are now feeling the desire to want to engage in a different kind of way. Now, I don't want to make it a broad stroke and say, oh, all blacks feel this particular way, because that's not the case.
Absolutely.
But people are talking about wanting to feel more. And Charles Wesley talked about that. Charles and John Wesley talked about that. That's how we got Methodism in Bible study. There was a warming of the heart. And I think there's so much to contend with out there. And then you take that one day you have off
on Sundays
and still not feel that warming of the heart, or cultural connection, spiritual connection, however you want to. I mean, why bother go?
So it sounds like, so what you feel, what you're suggesting that people are looking for is that sense of connection. Is it just connection with community? Connection? Is it a connection with the self, the connection with the truth, connection with the spirit, connection with the core of who and what we are? What can you speak
I
more
think
to that?
there's a little bit of all of that. And I think that all of this is important. But let me just say this. I also think you see it more with the Gen Zs who they're already connected on the internet, stuff like that. They're already connected. I mean, I think they're looking for more of a justice take, looking for institutions that represent justice. And that's historically what the Black church has meant.
Yeah.
And I think this revitalization or homecoming, however you want to frame it, is that young people, I think, in the African American context, want to be boots on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be about the liberation. Also, people are institutional religion, especially the Christian church, has demonized anything other than
Absolutely.
traditional Christianity, Native American spirituality, African spirituality, all of this. And we've had generations of Black people who've believed the lie, right?
Yeah.
And so young people are looking at that and going, well, wait a minute. How can you talk about that when you're doing this? And so we're seeing that when we're seeing the conflicts of traditions that supposedly talk about peace and love and brother, and you're fighting like two cats.
Absolutely.
With total disregard.
So that contradiction is propelling individuals, especially the younger generation. They're just not tolerating and putting up with a lot of the nonsense that we've been taught. And then, but you see more people now gravitating to indigenous wisdom, Native and African spirituality. What is it about? What is it that they're seeking in that?
Come to the institutional church to find God. People come to African-based spirituality to be God.
That's I often say you don't come to this spiritual center. This is not the church. The church is not the building made of mortar and clay. We are the church. I am the church. You are the church. So we come into spiritual community being that.
Right.
We don't come to church. We come as the church.
Right.
And I sense that people are waking up to that.
Yes.
And I that's powerful. Yeah. That's powerful what you just said. So as you see people gravitating to African spirituality, and you over social media, you see a lot of the videos. They're exploring that. So as a minister, as a spiritual leader, how is it that you help to guide people who are seeking something beyond what they might be hearing from the pulpits?
Well, I think you have to be at a certain level of assurance within yourself that the God you serve is as much out there and in here. Yeah. And if you don't have that, you will easily buy into what somebody out of some pulpit is telling you. You have to know that you are created in the image of God. And I think it's especially for Christians, Jesus says, you will do greater things than I. Well, if Jesus didn't say it, and if we don't believe that we can do greater things than Jesus, that gives the world is your oyster.
Yeah.
You can change the trajectory of the world. I mean, once I remember hearing a story about, I was living in Ohio, and Dick Celeste, who was the governor at that time, said we were having the chartering of a Black women's organization, and his wife Dagmar said, "Well, if one Black woman can change the face of America, what could 100 do?" And I paused, wondering who was she talking about, and it was Rosa Parks.
Wow. Wow.
And I thought about that. I mean, because you've got to believe in something to put your life on the line like that. And if the God that creates all is not a part of you, I mean, we are all partners in creation in some way.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what we have been taught historically, and even probably some of our experiences have been so non-creative.
You know, as I'm listening to you, I'm reminded probably one of my favorite courses in as I was exploring, working on my Master of Divinity degree, was constructive theology course, where we were encouraged to deconstruct and reconstruct our theology. And why do we believe what we believe? What were the sources and norms that inform our belief? And I sense and feel that that's where we are today. People are deconstructing the theology that they've been given all of these years, and from the colonized religion to the colonized Christ to the colonized Messiah, realizing that the images and the stuff that I was told is not necessarily the truth. And how is it that as a spiritual community and as leaders in the spiritual community and spiritual centers like this, how can we help guide the conversation to move from fear rather than delving into fear and dismissal? How can we help guide the conversation and guide individuals who are taking the masks off of religion, off of spirituality, off of God, off of Christ, off of the Spirit? How do we help guide that process?
I think it's a contextual issue. I think that as spiritual leaders, we also have to be in spaces where, number one, they're safe. You're safe. And you're able to bounce off some of these questions and concerns. I think we have to change the language. One of the things that I believe that we are still looking for salvation, but I'm not talking about salvation in the classical sense of Christian theology. I'm not talking about that kind of salvation. I think we're talking about a salvation that consists of community, that we are healers. We are open to be healed. We are looking for positive affirmation and to be able to allow that which God has given us in spirit to sing.
Wow.
That's the salvation that I'm talking about. Not from someone on high coming in and saying, Jesus only and Jesus only. I don't even think Jesus would want that. I think when Jesus is talking about the kingdom, he's talking about God's people. He's talking about humanity.
Yeah.
And when we put this kind of ownership, only me, there's a level of selfishness and ego that is bound in that.
You see that a lot. It surfaced a lot in religion for generations. So if spiritual communities are to remain relevant and life-giving, what must we reclaim today? What must we commit to? You've seen so many churches and centers closing, and even conferences on the decline. But if we're to remain relevant, what must we commit to today and recommit to?
I think humanity. I think empathy, and I think this is the grace and the genius of the Black church, is this notion of empathy and humanity. And I think that we have to put it forward. What I see in many mainline traditions is that our traditions are Sunday only. Okay, check this off the box. I came on Sunday. I gave my money. I did the coffee hour, did what I was supposed to do. But really creating spaces that are 7 days a week. And that's, and becoming spiritual centers.
And can you speak more to that? The
Well,
spiritual center.
and this may be even a little bit heretical.
Well, come on, no filters.
Matthew talks about creating a space of worship for all people. Well, all people are not going to believe what you believe. But that doesn't mean that your sanctuary cannot be a place where the Buddhist comes to find quiet.
There you go.
Or the indigenous person comes to find quiet or community. Or a Jewish person or a Muslim can't come to find something different or a new way of being or engaging or learning. That doesn't mean you have to agree. That doesn't mean you have to be a member.
Absolutely.
But it is about, I care enough to hear what you have to say or to be in your space. Or I care enough to say, I love you. And my presence, the ministry of presence, is important.
You know, at Hillside, we often say that love is our true religion. And to lean into the teachings of the masters of the ages is to embrace all paths. And we believe that that's the beauty of the divine that expresses uniquely and individually as each one of us and through the many paths. There's a saying from our Buddhist brothers and sisters that there are many paths to the top of the mountain, but the view is the same regardless of which path you take.
Yeah.
And so that's powerful. You know, you've been serving in spiritual leadership for how long now?
28 years.
28 years.
28
You started as a baby.
28 years. But actually, I personally feel like as I reflect on my life, it was more of a Jeremiah moment. And God knew me from the womb. And I was raised in some ways very traditionally, in some ways very non-traditionally. My family has always been an Episcopal Methodist AME kind of contingency where you have a hierarchical, you have bishops, and you have structure. My father was always a revolutionary.
Okay.
And he is a lawyer, but he was very non-traditional and started off in African-based drumming. And he will say to anybody, he became engaged in African-based spirituality based off of the drum. And if you know anything about African tradition, the drum is an exalted instrument.
All right.
Because it speaks. That's why they have talking drums, because it speaks. And many who engage with the drums, whether it's in the diaspora, become so engaged in body. And we see it, we still see this tradition, even though our maybe conservative Pentecostal spiritualist brother may not admit to it, but the drum still possesses in worship.
Oh, yeah.
But we're not going to say that because it might take us down somewhere we don't want to go. But the drum is still very, very, very important. And that's when he started to really engage in African-based spirituality. So I have never been raised to be afraid of it. Never.
How have you weaved that in your ministry all of these years?
Well, I mean, that's really has been a navigation point. But I see spaces in our Christian understanding that are very much in line with some of our African-based spiritualities. And I as one who understands that what we understand theologically, which we've come to understand, comes from a Reformation church out of Europe. But the original church did not come out of Europe.
Uh-oh.
I mean, let's just be honest about it. It came out of Ethiopia.
Hey, tell it.
I mean, and out of places in West Africa. North Africa. So And so much of that has been hidden from us.
Why is that?
Well,
Just make it plain. Why?
because I think
Why
there's
has
a
the
danger.
truth been hidden?
Because there's a danger. If you know who you are, you can claim your power.
Hey.
I think that Black people have a innate sense of spirituality that came with us in creation.
Yeah.
When I was my first trip to Ghana, and my it was like the scales came off my eyes, and I was at the last bath, and when I was, if you hear the story, those who have been to the last bath, they know what I'm saying is true. People being marched across Africa, divided, split up, brutalized, starved. And then right before you get on the ship, you're fed like a pig, or an animal, I should say, bathed, cleaned up, baptized. What could be more evil and heinous?
Yes.
And everything, and your God is taken away from you. Your family is taken away from you.
Your spirituality
Your
demonized.
spirituality demonized. And then somebody gets an amazing grace moment that saved a wretch like me. And we okay with that.
Hey, still singing it and shouting to it and humming to it.
And people at Incarnation know that, I'll have it. If you want to sing it, okay, sing it. But it's not something that speaks to my heart because someone all of a sudden realized what I've been doing and what I did and how I contributed to evil.
Yes.
Now I'm repenting and turning that thing around. Really?
Absolutely.
And so that's me. Okay, that's just me.
But not just you, but that's where a lot of people are there today. That's been one of the gifts of having the world at your fingertips from the internet and being able to research. And we have intelligent people who are studying today in our congregation, and those who are not attending because they've studied to show themselves approved, and they just cannot get with the nonsense and the lies and the perpetuation of the lies that we've been told all of these years.
Or the fear-mongering. Because this is where we are. This is where, we're seeing it in our politics in America. It's always been in the church. Anybody who thinks differently, that's why we got so many denominations. If you think differently, go out and start your own thing, right? And if you're thinking differently or if you disagree, you're a heretic. One of the early ones is Origen.
Yeah.
The church fathers was Origen. And so you think differently, or you create these conclaves where just like us. Is that really what Jesus was talking about? And let me say this. I am a believer in Jesus Christ. Why? Because I believe God centered him, brought him into this world to usher in something new and different called love.
All right.
And that's what we don't talk about. And love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. All that other stuff.
Yeah, and that's the core, I believe, the core of the indigenous, native African spirituality. It's the love of self and identifying the divine in the self and the divine God, known by many names, in all of life and all of creation. So there's a love and a level of respect and honor and reverence for the divine. And I could see how individuals are gravitating, looking beyond the traditional walls of religion to these aspects of spirituality.
Well, and I think it hasn't worked for us. There just comes to a point where it hasn't worked.
And so what's Einstein's definition of insanity?
Keep doing
the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So, for those who are tuning in and who have been fed up with traditional religion and decided, I'm not going back to a church, I'm not going back to any community of organized religion, what's your word of encouragement to them today?
Well, I would say don't give up on yourself.
Hey.
Don't give up on yourself. And if this time, and I think one of the gifts that COVID gave us, it allowed us because we couldn't connect and hold hands and hug and all the things that we like to do. But it allowed us to hug ourselves if we were really taking that time and using it wisely and getting to know ourselves a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And I would say don't give up on yourself. And I would also say give community a try. Figure out what kind of community you need that feeds you. Not what feeds your husband and your children, but what feeds you. Because it's like on the airplane, don't try to put the mask on the children and everybody first. Put the mask on yourself first, and then you go. And I think that's what's important. I think you start there. And I also think we have to stop this notion of our spiritual leaders as perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, because then you set yourself up for disappointment. Yes, our spiritual leaders do have a different standard in terms of how we should conduct ourselves. But stop putting them in the line of perfect.
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
So.
Well, thank you so very much. This has been a powerful conversation of no filters, of no fluff. And for those who are tuned in, just as Reverend Lynne has said, if you're looking for a community, there's something powerful that happens in being in spiritual community, being around other like-minded individuals. And if you are looking, there are spaces and places. There are leaders who are embracing the truth, who are standing on the truth, who are decolonizing the Christ, decolonizing religion, decolonizing faith, and presenting the truth. So if you are tuned in and you're seeking to be in spiritual community that honors that, even here, and you do it at your community, our greeting is Namaste. We behold the Spirit in you. Alafia, Assalamu alaikum, Aloha. We embrace the many paths to the divine, and that includes the path you're on. Any last words for blessing or challenge that you might have for our listeners?
Well, I think the thing that I would challenge you is if you're not in a faith-based community, ask yourself why, and really look to heal your church hurt. And I think if you really look to heal your church hurt and you're missing that community that you walked away from because somebody looked at me cross-eyed or a pastor said something, whatever, I think you have to address that. Yeah. And really, because God wants you to be in community. And I still do believe that the church as an institution, meaning community, is the best place to work on that. Don't try to do it on your own. Don't try to heal yourself. Because in any sickness or illness or brokenness, there's always another professional to help you. Yeah. Whether it's your medical doctor or your therapist or your spiritual director.
Absolutely.
There's always another person to walk with you. And that's what community is about.
So you don't have to do it alone. There is support. There is assistance, and your tribe is there. So thank you so much. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Bishop.
Reverend Dr. Lynne Washington, my sister, for joining us for this Unfiltered Truth podcast. And for those of you, remember, we are the church. You are the church. We do not go to church. We are the church. We come to spiritual community as the living, breathing church. Thank you for tuning in to Unfiltered Truth with Jack Bomar.